Okay, so I wanted to make a video on pre-prepping some Edge of Fate loadouts because it's something I do every season anyways, so I figured I may as well share it. Okay, so I pick 8 builds that are currently good and or will be good, and I like to have subclass variety as much as possible. But the artifact is largely going to dictate that balance, right, as it shapes the meta every season. So this video is going to be covering the top 8 hunter builds for, so to speak, day 1 Edge of Fate. Right, I'll make separate videos for Titan and Warlock, so make sure to hit the sub, hit the bell, right? That way you know exactly when those go live. If you're impatient and want to get straight to a certain build in this video, check the timestamps in the description or the chapters, and you can watch just 15% of the video. Right, so why 8 builds and not 12? We have 12 loadouts. Well, the reason I have these 4 grayed out loadouts is because they are placeholders for copy pasting my base 8 loadouts into. Okay, so every activity, as you know, requires different mod setups, at the very least different weapons, sometimes 2 builds to swap to between a single encounter. If I'm in a raid, farm in a raid, I use anywhere from 3 to 5 loadouts, and if I'm farming like 2 or 3 different activities regularly, like say this season the Nether and Court of Blades and Rite of the Nine, then these blanks come in handy, right? So, and the reason that they're at the top instead of the bottom is because when I open my menu on console, the cursor sits at number 1, making hot swapping 100 times faster on controller as opposed to scrolling down to number 12. Okay, so the artifact in Edge of Fate is going to be heavily focused on solar damage. We know all this stuff. Dark debuffs, strand ability spam, stasis stuff. Check Bungie's website or a Twid vid, right, by one of the big YouTubers to get more info on that. But obviously, I'm telling you that because these builds for Edge of Fate, they're going to be heavily affected by the artifact mods, right? I'm not saying that's good or bad or what. I'm just saying it is what it is. Background gameplay is just a no mic LFG Eternity run of Spire the Watcher from a few weeks ago using my number 1 build, right? I believe it's flawless gameplay. So without further ado, these are my top 8 loadouts builds for day 1 Edge of Fate. Hope you enjoy. Alright, so first off, coming in at number 1 is Relativism, featuring primarily Spirit of Sirdarachne, and then I would say, in order of importance after that, Foe Tracer, Star Eaters, Caliban. First off, I can already hear you yelling, where's Liars, where's Inmost? Well, the answer is, I like Ascension instead of Punch Dodge. Punch Dodge is a fun gameplay loop in doses, but it's very disorienting for me personally, whereas Ascension is like an ejection seat out of a situation that's about to blow up. And it also gives you a bird's eye view of the battlefield to make your next input even better planned, right? So it's like the complete opposite. Not to mention you get 15% DR from Amplified. You've got overloaded and jolted enemies. You got your speed booster. Enemy fire basically gets EMP'd. Right, I mean the enemies just start missing you, right? That's a feature. So I mean you could spam it back to back along with your melee, right, to weaken the enemies to become radiant. So it's just crazy. Become radiant, sever the enemy, etc. Every 15 seconds on average, with Gambler's Dodge, that is. So the slower charging dodge cooldown is spammable, right? And that's thanks to, Hunter class ability has always been a pretty low cooldown, but thanks to Facet of Grace always triggering from the Ascension buff, it makes it a self-sustaining loop, right? Facet of Grace gives you increased class ability energy as long as you have a buff of some sort. So, as long as you have a relatively high mobility stat, or in Edge of Fate, a class ability stat, this will always be the case. So Ascension with Sirdarachne, right, and like something like a shield or a heal bump from something like Restoration or Void Overshield makes this amongst the most survivable non-stronghold, non-invisibility build in the game, right? The caveat is being that you really can't waste time using your abilities with Spirit of Sirdarachne. So you kind of need to use a weapon with demo or attrition orbs and innervation on your leg armor, right, to ensure that you have those 10-second grenades, right? Because since Woven Mail from Sirdarachne is a 10-second buff, right? So that's the idea there. If you can't, then you might need something like Spirit of Inmost to help you, but if you choose your weapons wisely and kit out your mods, you can get 10-second grenades without Inmost. But, with that said, becoming Transcendent is a guaranteed way to do that. So it's worth your effort to attend to your Transcendence meter and your, both your light and dark damage. Make sure that you have adequate of both, because once you're Transcendent, you have infinite grenades, infinite woven mail, right? So, the build falls apart if you have poor grenade regen, and if you have like long or inconsistent intermissions between enemy spawns to break up your gameplay loop. The number 2 build actually solves these issues while maintaining a similar gameplay style, and it doesn't require you to farm exotic cloaks for a 1 in 12 shot at Spirit of Threadrunner plus an additional 1 in 12 shot at getting the other spirit that you want, right? I'll get to that in a minute. However, where this build really shines is its ability to slot in that second spirit, right? A second exotic. Foe Tracer for 25% weapon surge is both invaluable and incomparable on Hunter. With ticking abilities, especially like Hailfire Spike, Dusk Fields, Smoke Bombs. Pick your best stasis and void weapons, or get creative with other elements and do massive damage for no cost to your leg armor or a need to break immersion to swap loadouts during gameplay. You can even forgo Threadrunner for bigger super damage, with something like Star Eaters. If you can come up with a way to adapt without woven mail, or get it by some other means. For example, this season, easy with Tangles. Next season, what's it going to be? Caliban, right, is also looking to be especially fun in Edge of Fate, since solar damage is going to be doing more damage. So Caliban Threadrunner is already great in ad dense, ad clearing environments, or where there's a lot of solar shielded wizards, for example, in the ritual encounter, right? Via my own gameplay, I would say it's ultimatum gold tier approved. Just Caliban Threadrunner. Threadrunner with anything, Threadrunner is going to keep you alive, but ignitions on solar shielded tanky wizards, extremely good. So it's going to be good in Edge of Fate as well, even better. Okay, so the number 2 build is Gifted Conviction. So, like I said, this build solves some of the issues with Threadrunner. It's basically the exact same build, right, as the latter. However, where Gifted Conviction shines is its ability to get added resist on top of Ascension, right? So, yeah, you do more jolting arc damage AoE, which can be nice as well from the perspective of clearing ads and overloading enemies. But the resist times 3 buff feature of the exotic is the main beneficiary here, since you max your stacks by damaging multiple enemies with Ascension, right? And because the quote-unquote resist buff is separate from subclass buffs, such as Woven Mail, Frost Armor, Amplified, it's actually stackable with Woven Mail, Frost Armor, and Amplified, which means you technically can get even more damage resistance out of Gifted Conviction than you can out of Threadrunner, Spirit of Threadrunner. But I'll tell you that you'd have to go out of your way to stack that many buffs, and it's not worth stacking more than, say, 2 DR buffs, depending on the values. Most of the time, it's just because it's diminishing returns, right? You got Woven Mail, Frost Armor, Damage Resist times 3, Amplified. Basically, the last 2-3 buffs that you've added on there didn't really give you any marginal benefit because of diminishing returns. So where the Relativism cloak with Spirit of Threadrunner takes you 2 actions to stack DR buffs, right? You would have to ascend and then throw a grenade, as opposed to just ascending with Gifted Conviction, right? Gifted Conviction can just do that with one action, which means you don't need to worry about grenade spamming at all, which makes it great for exploring, patrolling, transitions in between raids and dungeons, right? So I mean, Gifted Conviction, it's easy to use, it's effective at keeping you alive in all endgame PvE. Literally all, maybe even better than Titan and Warlock can do. Its only real downside is its lack of increased weapon or super damage inherently, which is essential for boss encounters. Therefore, in a raid or a dungeon setting, you'll need a second loadout to swap to during boss damage phase, and you can actually use this next build coming in at number 3, which is also prismatic and also not an exotic class item. And number 3 is Celestial Nighthawk, right? Golden Gun is looking to do big damage next season. Solar damage is increased to dark debuffed enemies via the artifact. That's going to stack with Facet of Courage, Radiant, and Weaken, and Transcendence to make Golden Gun on Prismatic literally the only way to go as far as using Golden Gun. That said, Spirit of Star Eaters, right, just a side note on Golden Gun here, Spirit of Star Eaters will put out similar damage, right, but it takes longer to prepare for and longer to shoot 3 shots, right? With Star Eaters taking the slot of Surturaki anyways, it's not like you get much more viability out of Relativism, aside from pairing Star Eaters with something like Foe Tracer, right, which would buff Hezen Vengeance and Time Lost Magazine quite nicely post-Goldie, just saying. However, we already have a Relativism armor set ready to go in slot 1, like I've already discussed, and so should the situation arise where I choose Foe Tracer and Star Eaters with Golden Gun, I can do that on my number 1 loadout, right? I can copy that up there and tune that in. So the other argument to make for Celestial Nighthawk is that you can swap into it for boss damage and swap off to a more survivable build before and after, right? So you can't do that with Spirit of Star Eaters because you need to farm orbs for Feast of Light. So Star Eaters is like, it's a commitment, where Celestial Nighthawk is a quick swap and better burst damage, right? So set up your Celestial Nighthawk build with full surges too, right? That way when you do swap, you've got 22% extra solar damage or whatever weapons that you're using that you want to apply surges to, right? You're swapping anyways, so just treat the build that way, right? And you will shine on the damage leaderboard, trust me. As long as you can hit your Goldie, you're going to be looking pretty good. So snipers are going to be in the artifact again as well, right? Solar precision damage will proc Radiant, and that could be great for Still Hunt, right? If it is to make a return, I mean, this could be the season. Hezen Vengeance with Still Hunt and a Slice or Chill Clip weapon looking to be potent. And just one note to add here, since I treat Celestial Nighthawk as a swap exotic, right? So it's not really like a neutral build. I don't use it in just general gameplay ever. It's literally just for like a 30-second damage phase, right? The majority of my time is spent on other builds. But since it's treated that way, it means that you need to match your subclass setup, right? So just make sure that your survivability build, whatever it is that you're using, has the essentials that you need to max out your Golden Gun effects, right? So Facet of Courage, for sure. Snare Bomb, I'd say for sure. Facet of Dawn would be a normal staple, but because becoming Radiant enhances your Golden Gun, right? You need to become Radiant, obviously, before you shoot your Golden Gun. But the artifact is looking to provide Radiant, right, much more efficiently anyways, based on previous seasonal artifacts with solar precision damage giving you Radiant. You get it like in a couple shots and it lasts forever. So you can probably go without it if you want to use a different fragment there. So coming in at number 4 on the flavor here of solar supers, Star Eater Scales and Blade Barrage, right? I'm skeptical about this one, however, but it's been a long time since Gunslinger's been viable, which is a shame. because Blade Barrage used to be king, and it very well still may be viable, but its neutral game has been completely power crept by Prismatic. Blade Barrage, however, like it does things to certain bosses that Golden Gun does not, right? It's great for big bulky targets where precision is not easy or suitable. So we'll see how it goes, but I figured it'd be good to have at least just give Gunslinger a shot somewhere, right? And if I'm gonna do it, it's probably just because it's gonna be needed for damage somehow, if anything, right? So if there's ever a reason to use it in tomorrow's sandbox, it'd be for that Juicy Feast of Light ×6 Blade Barrage, right? Other than that, I don't mind running around throwing knife tricks back to back, causing ignitions, picking up fire sprites for heals. It's a fun gameplay loop, so hopefully it gets a bit of spice, because it's definitely needed, but I'm not holding my breath. And for everything other than, like those specific boss damage goals, there's way more viable neutral game builds, right? So regardless though, having a saved armor set for Star Eaters is a good idea, in my experience, because it's not subclass specific. So if there's a reason to pull out like Gathering Storm on Arc, I can do that with this loadout as well. In fact, I've had this loadout saved on Arc all of Heresy due to the artifact. Did I use Star Eaters and Gathering Storm over anything else all season? No, I didn't. So we'll see in Edge of Fate. Maybe this loadout will just be, another waste of space for an entire season. However, coming in at number 5, and by no means is the order here necessarily of like what I think is better or worse, but sometimes it's just more a matter of like matching a couple loadouts together that could be swapped between, right? So while I'm not excited for Blade Barrage on Gunslinger per se, I'm keen to test it, like I said, but I am excited for this next build coming in at number 5, which is Threadrunner. Beyblades, double grenades, suspension slam, threaded specter. There's so many great aspects on Threadrunner, but only one super, one melee, no access to Transcendence, Radiant, Weaken, or any other non-strand subclass buffs, right? So this is the sad case of nearly all core subclasses these days, but that doesn't mean that this build isn't unique still, right? Tangle spawn frequently enough that you can have whirling maelstroms circulating the entire battlefield, unraveling everything, right? And exponentially spawning more of them as it does. Throw in some suspend, right, for from double shackles or ensnaring slam or both, right? And you can crowd control. I mean, you can do tons of crowd control with this build. So I mean, it certainly does things that other builds can't or doesn't, right? And Strand in general next season is getting some major boosts from the artifact, right? Especially geared towards ability spam. So using those class abilities and your grenades more often it's going to be a thing. Now, Gamblers and Marksman's Dodge, right, they're now meant to work with class ability based aspects as well. So Ensnaring Slam is meant to be better, right? I haven't play tested it since the change, but just throwing that out there. You're going to get more grenade regen from the artifact, right? So it can make those high cooldown shackles viable for spamming, especially with 2 from Widow's Silk. The exotic Surturachne seems like a bland option in light of its, presence on Prismatic and Spirit form, but it's effective nonetheless on Threadrunner, and with the with the increased grenade regen from the artifact, it's going to be even more so, right? But even without the artifact boost, if you use a grapple, right, there's never going to be a shortage of Beyblades or Tangles or grapple points to latch onto, right? So you can have infinite refreshes on Woven Mail. I've also had fun on Threadrunner with Lucky Pants, Moth Keepers, Foe Tracer. I've yet to try out the Spectre Pants, so depending on your Woven Mail needs, right, the exotic here is kind of a placeholder, if you will, but the Strand loadout's going to stay because I'm sure that I'm going to be messing around on Threadrunner in Edge of Fate. And on that note, Quicksilver Storm, one of my old favorite weapons to use on Strand Hunter, has been rebuffed as well, I think since a while ago, but it's been ignored for some time, right? And in Edge of Fate, it's going to be overcharged, it's going to be overloading enemies, so it could return to this kit as a good tangle making machine, right? In short of Storm's Keep, Banner of War, Ionic Sentry, Strand Hunter has some of the most uniquely effective and fun non-prismatic aspects in the game, so I'm actually much more excited about this build than I am, say, Star Eaters on Vanilla Gunslinger, right? Or the next build, which is an old favorite gone by the wayside, which is Revenant Core Stasis Hunter. Actually, the build here is Lucky Pants, right? And who am I fooling? The subclass is probably going to switch to Prismatic, but I threw this in here just for the copes. It used to be the case before Prismatic that Revenant had good synergy with Lucky Pants because of Whisper of Rending, right? You get a massive 40% damage buff to frozen targets with primary weapons. So, like with Winter Shroud, Shurikens, Enhanced Duskfields, you get some decent uptime on freeze. So this was quite viable back then. However, both Lucky Pants and Revenant as the subclass have been off my radar completely since the final shape released. So this loadout is going to be experimental, right? There's been big changes made to Lucky Pants and to the Stasis subclass as well. Bungie seems to want us to play into the harvest aspects for shards and frost armor, and I'm not excited or enthusiastic about it. My old setup was Touch of Winter and Winter Shroud, so I never played into Stasis Shards to begin with, so I don't know. I feel like I play Stasis Hunter all the time, but it's sadly not on Revenant, right? It's probably just going to be better to switch it to Prismatic, throw a Smoke Bomb for double damage, for a double damage buff, Radiant Weaken while being able to stay alive. But because I got an armor set saved here, that's an easy switch out, right? Either way, hand cannons are they're the main inspiration here. They're going to be staggering enemies and unstops next season and benefiting from being overcharged. So I foresee good things for Lucky Pants, but I can't say the same thing about Revenant. Even if we have a stasis-themed artifact, I am extremely skeptical that Revenant will be a wise choice over a stasis-flavored Prismatic Hunter. Okay, so then coming in at number 7 and 8, I'll just do them together, kind of. Nightstalker. I don't recommend that you have 2 Nightstalker builds, maybe just one, but Void's going away as far as the artifact from this season, so while you may think, well, then why bother with Void builds next season, and although you would have a point, the opposite is also true, right? Because where in the artifact do you see anything about Weaken, right? Weaken is a universally important debuff that transcends artifact mods, meaning you need it. So, especially in a team setting with bosses and the likes, someone ought to be weakening the enemy, and Nightstalker can do that in multiple ways, right? And the same is true, and more importantly, right? This is the more important point for Nightstalker, is the invisibility. Prismatic can do Weaken just fine. It's got Tether, it's got Echo of Dominance with magnetic grenades, but what Prismatic can't do is make you and your teammates invisible on command, regardless of enemy presence, thanks to, Trapper's Ambush. So you got exotics like Omnioculus. It's a free pass to flawlessing anything. And when it comes to blind or difficult content, such as GMs, right, you can breathe easy with one of these guys on a build, guys or gals in a build on your fire team, right? So the point about Weaken, it's valid, but the real deal here, the point about Weaken applies to basically all Void builds. But the real deal here for Hunter especially is the on-command invisibility for everybody, and with Omni, you get gifted conviction levels of damage resist. Don't forget that. Okay, and then I got Gerfalcons because it's close to my heart. The only solo flawless dungeon I've done on my Hunter was with this exotic, and if it weren't for free volatile from seasonal artifacts, I'd have used it even more. I mean, this is still technically the best build in the game for volatile rounds, but its necessity is questionable with the Heresy buff to destabilizing rounds, right? Giving free access to volatile rounds on any subclass, right? Being available on weapons like Choir of One, Lotus Eater. So, I mean, if you want the volatile experience, you no longer need to go to Gerfalcons, right, as much as before. But nonetheless, Nightstalker maintains its usefulness in the same ways that Omnioculus does, even if it's not as effective at it as Omnioculus. And Gerfalcons is a simple way to play any content, whether you're in a fire team or solo, especially where there's shielded enemies and barrier champions, right? Void machine guns go especially hard at deleting foes, right? So that's it for my loadouts and everything going into Edge of Fate. I hope you enjoyed this video. Look forward to the next videos coming up, and be sure to leave me a comment. Of course, a lot of this is subject to change, and I will keep you guys updated as that happens in the new season. Take care.